Moshe Taragin from Acțion in Israel for the OU All Parsha video series, Parshas HaShavua. This week is Parshas Tazria-Metzora, which we typically, unless it's a Shana Muberes, and we have extra Shabbosos on our hands, we typically read them together. The Mishnah and Chagiga, when it summarizes different areas of halacha, some are more textually based, some are less textually based, some are poreach ba'avir, there's hardly any textual anchor, they're levitating in air, and it's all Mesara and Halacha Moshe Sinai. It points to the halachas of Tumas and Taros, in particular Tazria-Metzora. The lashon of the Mishnah and Chagiga is Hadinim, the laws of Sanhedrin, Avodos, the laws of Korbanos, Hataharos v'Hatmeos, Tumantara, Tumas, Ve'arayos, and of course the laws of Gilarayos. Yesh lahen alma sheyismochu. Namely, they do have a robust textual anchor. They are written about extensively. The hein gufei Torah. The gufei Torah can mean a lot of things, but at the very least, they are in the guf haTorah. We don't have to learn that much from limudim. Obviously, we have to decode the Torah's text. And one look at Parshas Tazria and Parshas Metzora, and you see the level of detail, and even the level of repetition, and one could claim redundancy. Each and every type of saras is articulated, and if it does spread or if it doesn't spread, and the colors. And just think about some of the other areas in halacha, which also have intricate and complex halachic detail, but don't have the degree of psukim dedicated to articulating. We have to learn from limudim or from halacha Moshe Sinai's and Yud Gimel Midrash Hatar to Drashas Brahem. And just think about the end of Parshas Metzora, where the laws of Zav and Zava are articulated, and by and large, again, there are some differences, but by and large, certainly the Korbanos are very similar, and yet the Torah repeats it. And this, of course, is the subject of a beautiful medrash. It's in Vayikra Rabbah, but it refers to the pasuk in Shir Hashirim Shecharani. The woman says, I'm dark, I'm uncouth, I'm unattractive, but v'nava, but yet I'm very pretty. And there are literally dozens of drashos for this contrast between Shechara and even Nava. I think it's on that pasuk, or maybe on the pasuk Shecharos Ke'orev, that the locks of hair of the man entering the house or wanting to enter the house, called the Didofek, is dark but is pretty. I think it's on that pasuk. Either way, the purpose, the pasuk of the launching part of the medrash isn't as important as the medrash itself. Shem says, even though there are parshas in the Torah that appear to be dark and ugly, la'omram barabim, and it's not appropriate to speak about these issues in public. Kigon hilchos ziva, people that have impure fluids issuing from their body, v'negoyim, and are afflicted with venereal disease, STDs, epidermal diseases, nida, yoledes, amar kadosh baruch hu, harehin arevo salai. These parshios are more cherished by me or to me than other parshios, as it were. Teidalach, the medrash says, shukain, shei parshas zav v'zava lo nemru ki achas elazu b'fnei atzma, even though the laws of Zav, a male who has impure issue from his body, again, impure doesn't mean unholy, it just means non-sin. You can be the biggest tzaddik in the world and you just have an impure issue. So again, we don't really have a good English translation for tameh. We use the word impure, but we mean halachically impure. We don't mean morally or personally impure, that the person is unholy or impure. Person, for example, let's say, could be performing one of the greatest mitzvahs on the books, the mitzvah of bearing a mace mitzvah, they become tameh. They're tzaddik, but they're tameh. Moshe Rabbeinu, for a good part of 40 years in the Midbar, was tameh because he was personally attending to the Atzmos Yosef. Doesn't mean he was an impure person, just means he was halachically and legally impure. So the level of repetition, not just between Zav and Zava, but if you look at Tazria-Metzora also, if you look, open up a Quran Tanakh, as I have in front of me, and you'll see there are very few parsha breaks. There are long, long sections, and not just is there detailed description of the laws of Zav, Zava, Metzora, Yoledes, and Nida, but the texts itself are very long and heavy and textual, and there are very few breaks. Hashem is making a statement that even though you would think that they're ugly and inappropriate and improper and impolite and unattractive and uncouth. They are the issues that Kadosh Baruch Hu wants and cherishes and loves to speak about. And that's why the Mishnah Chagiga calls them Gufei Torah. And that's why, if you look, the parshios that have the highest frequency of the word Torah are Parshas, Tazria, and Metzora. The word Torah appears 5 times in Parshas Tazria-Metzora. Zos Toras Ashabo Negatzeras. Zos Toras Lechol Negatzeras. We're going to read all 5 of them. Again, not just do they appear with great frequency, but there are 5 times Torah, which of course is the iconic Chamisha Chumshei Torah. It's almost as if Tazria-Metzora is just as equivalent or important as the Chamisha Chumshei Torah proper. What does all this mean? What it means is Shtaim Shem Kachas. 2 ideas, but they're really the same. Number 1 is the Torah doesn't blush. It's not as if there are parts of the human condition which are elegant and lofty and noble and dignified and transcendent and angelic and sanitized, and those are the moments we stand in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But when our bodies break down and excuse me for saying, odor comes and foul odor and blood and body fluids, and that's not really the place of religion. It's not really, and it's not almost as if, it's definitely HaKadosh Baruch Hu compensating for what we would think. And that thought can lead to broad-scale dichotomization, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists in certain spaces and doesn't exist in other spaces. And once you begin to dichotomize or to dualize, and there are dark and light and good and bad, you start to slice religion into small little cross-sections rather than one holistic, organic, integrated experience. Reminiscent of the Ramah in the beginning of Shulchan Aruch, where the Mechaber begins the Shulchan Aruch with Yiskaber Kari Lasos V'Tzani V'Chash B'Shamayim. You should wake up with strength and alacrity and buzzing with energy and enthusiasm. And the Ramah ratchets it down a little bit, dials it down. Shavis Hashem L'Negdi Samid. It's great to get up with a lot of excitement, but the rest of the day, not just when you first wake up, but the rest of the day should also be Lifnei Hashem, Shavis Hashem L'Negdi Samid. And by the way, the Ramah ends his comments in Orach Chaim, the halachas of Asuda, Purim, Katan, and Ibriya, Shana Mubaris, Tovlev, Mishte Tamid. So, the ability to bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the entirety of our existence, in an extreme fashion, the not-so-nice parts of our existence, but not just that. Certainly, Yiddishkeit, Judaism does not view marital relations as any less Omed Lifnei Hashem. Obviously, there are halachos that govern tznius there, as opposed to other moments where you're in shul, Beis Knesses. But we're always standing in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and every moment we live in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and beyond. Not just the areas of human experience that would seem to be malfunctions and bloody and issue, or that would seem to be very private and non-related to religion, but everything, business and life and anything, army and wherever you are in life, how can you be an Oved Hashem in that moment? And that's one of I wish I could make a list of the 10 or 15 most crucial balancing acts of religion, the most crucial calibrations, 10 calibrations of religion. One of them would be to, on the one hand, integrate and spread the Tamidos and Shavis Hashem L'Negdi into every part of the human condition. On the other hand, to still calibrate between them and classify them as different. Because if you can't, then you don't, then you experience the pancake effect, where everything becomes flat and the same. And different communities and different hashkafas have different challenges. If there's too much sanctity and too much holiness and Torah and davening and shul, and it's much harder to then realize Avodas Hashem, where you're not in those intense, passionate moments. And then communities or hashkafas that try to breathe religion and spirituality into the sum total and the broader sweep of life, but can you still maintain these moments on the mountain, standing at a religious altitude that's different than your day-to-day dreary routine? So part of the message of Parshas Tazria-Metzora is the Torah doesn't blush. The Torah enters every nook and cranny of human experience, and not just the parts that people would think are embarrassing, but any part that you would say, well, maybe it's less a place for me to encounter HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The second message is not, I think, theological and where we find Hashem. It's more emotional. These are not just body fluids and blood, and these are people who are suffering low moments of low self-esteem. It doesn't feel good to be a Zav. I've never been a halachic Zav, but I can't imagine it feels good. You don't feel good about yourself. I've been in situations physically that I can imagine are similar to the feelings you would have as a Zav, where your body doesn't work properly, where you're ill, where you need severe medical attention, where, I'm not a woman, and I don't want to speak in ways that are insensitive or inaccurate, but what must it feel like to go through postpartum, people speak of postpartum depression, postpartum adjustment. Certainly, the odium surrounding a Metzora, and the outcast, and the throwaway, and the person who has to be quarantined, that can't feel good for Metzora, and whatever sin Chazal attributes Saras to, you're carrying around that guilt. And the message of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by spending so much time and investing so much verbiage and so many words in the halachas of nida and zav and zava, people that are bloodied and battered and bruised and broken, the purpose is, Hashem says, I'll be there for you. I'll write the word Torah 5 times. Not just theologically, you find me in stretched Torah, but at those moments in particular, when you feel weakest, you most acutely need Hashem. And that's also part of the challenge, because when we need Hashem, sometimes it's easier to feel HaKadosh Baruch Hu because we don't have any preconditions, we don't have any presumptions about ourselves, and we feel broken, and we feel weak, and we feel dependent, and we feel HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence. And then the challenge becomes, how can you feel HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence when you're not a nida, you're not a zavi, you're not a Metzora, everything's working like peaches, and everything's working smoothly and running smoothly. How can you regain that dependency? And it's not easy. You can talk about it, you can imagine it, but it's hard to feel it. So the dual messages of Parashat Tazria-Metzora, by the investment in that many words, by the length of the parshios without the breaks, by the repetition of the word Torah 5 times in these sections, is twofold. Number one, existentially, theologically, don't compartmentalize. Don't build rooms of religion and rooms that are either neutral or, God forbid, anti-religious. Second of all, when you suffer, and that's why the laws of Metzora, v'huva el ha-kohen, you think the Kohen should remain dignified and clean and apart from this person who clearly has a contagious disease, and yet the Kohen has to administer to the needs and visit the leper and unwrap the bandages and try to pronounce the healing. And it's a message about the Kohen, and it speaks a little bit about the message I mentioned last week, that a leader, Moshe, David, has to get their hands dirty and not just remain high and mighty and aloof and hobnobbing only with the celebrities, but be willing to inspect the hooves and the stomachs of animals to see whether they're kosher, be willing to look at menstrual blood to see whether a woman's Torah tameh, or in this case, be willing to visit someone that other people may shy away from. But there's not just a message about the Kohen's need to be sympathetic and to get his hands, air quotes, dirty, but it's about Hashem informing a person who is broken that I am there, I will visit you. And of course, Hashem's agent, Shluchah D'Rachmana, is the Kohen. Shabbat Shalom.